Matthew chapter 26, verses 47 to 56. While he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him." At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back in its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say it must happen in this way?" At that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place, so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled.
So we've been on a journey for this year and a bit. A journey through the Gospel according to Matthew. And it's really starting to hot up now. We're getting to the crux of the message of the Gospel. And here we find ourselves in the Garden of Gethsemane. Here we find ourselves with a betrayer and a betrayal. Judas highlights to the guards who Jesus is, and with the word teacher, rabbi. Not Lord, not Messiah, not Christ, not even his name. Greetings, teacher. And then the kiss. One not of love, but of betrayal. Jesus' reply is to call Judas a friend, an acknowledgement to do what he's come to do. Judas can't even use Jesus' name, and Jesus' first words were to call his betrayer a friend. There are so many interesting parts to this scene. Loads of questions. Now you might ponder why the people that came to arrest Jesus came with clubs and weapons. They seem to fear Jesus. And when have we seen anything from Jesus that might suggest it's best to come armed? Jesus uses words, not might. But one of Jesus' followers, unnamed, pulls out his sword. Actually, maybe the swords and clubs were a good idea after all. And he strikes and removes the ear of one of the servants of the high priest. Matthew doesn't name the person with the sword or the servant. Other Gospels do. John names Peter, classic Peter here. The servant was called Malchus. Luke names him. But Matthew doesn't name either of them. He doesn't want us to be distracted by the names of others. He wants us only to see Jesus. He does name Judas the betrayer, the one who's been bought by money. And he does name Jesus. No one else is named in this scene. The main thing that I think it wants us to think above all in this scene is not the questions that we've heard, but actually it's Jesus' willingness to go ahead with the Father's plan here. That's incredible. Jesus asks Judas to do what he must. Jesus knows what's coming and Judas must do it. Jesus calls on, well, he could call on 12 legions of angels to stop this. He doesn't. He could stop it. He doesn't. Jesus knows. Jesus points twice to the scriptures to show this has been planned long in advance. This is the only way, and that he's choosing not to fight back. Jesus knows. Jesus is walking into this moment with his eyes open. Just before this moment in the garden, Jesus prayed to God the Father, is there another way? Here at his arrest, he shows that this is the only way. Jesus wasn't forcefully arrested. He chose to allow himself to be arrested. He walks willingly into this moment. He loves his betrayer. He calms down a possible moment of fighting and suffering. He heals one of his captors. Jesus knows what will happen and he chooses it. I want you to think for a moment about superhero films and programs. Who's your strongest superhero? Is it Hulk? Captain Marvel? Is it Vision? Is it Superman? Depends if you're Marvel or DC, really there. It's not Batman. You know, he's just really rich and grumpy. It's not Captain America. He's brave, but in reality, maybe not the brightest. But imagine having the insight to know what is coming. In my mind, that would be a great superhero power. You don't need to be fast or strong or have amazing fighting skills if you can see what is coming and avoid it. Jesus seems to know exactly what is coming here, exactly what will happen. And unlike others who might have that insight, unlike me probably, he doesn't flee, he walks towards it. Jesus chooses it. Jesus, the King, chooses pain and suffering on behalf of his people. And Scripture tells us in verse 56 that this fulfills the words of the prophets. Oh, and then right at the end of this scene, we see a much more human reaction. In verse 56, we glimpse again at the disciples, their leader taken away and arrested, the one who was surely going to lead the resistance to the Romans, the one who can set them free, the one who did all those signs and wonders. Well, he's now in the hands of the enemy. How is he going to save them here? Verse 56 reads, "They all deserted him and fled."